Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 locations that are extremely good places to catch a bass, but most anglers completely overlook. I think there's a lot of anglers out there that would look at these different locations and say, I'm not fishing there because there's not going to be any bass there. But I got to tell you, if you're one of those anglers, you're probably making a mistake and you're leaving a few extra bass in the lake that you could have caught. Now, I want to get into that, but before I do, I want to remind you that if you're watching the videos on a regular basis, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the channel. I can tell you that about half the viewers out there are not subscribers yet. So go ahead and click that subscription button if you want to support the channel. Also, if you're looking to purchase tackle and you want to support the channel, please use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link. I'll put the link in the video description for you. You can go ahead and bookmark that for future purchases as well, so you don't have to worry about remembering to do that. And those of you who are making tackle purchases using my affiliate link, thank you very much. The support is great. The dollars I make from that come right back into making content for everyone out there, hopefully helping us all catch a few more fish with tips like today's. So we're going to talk about 5 locations that most anglers are completely overlooking. But I can tell you from personal experience, these are not just good areas to fish. They're the type of areas I actually am seeking out, and most people are not. So let's get into this. The first location that I want to talk about is a beach. A lot of anglers look at beaches and say, I'm not going to fish there. And in fact, a lot of beaches are not even open to fishing because of the fact that you don't want to hook a swimmer, right? So there's buoys or no fishing areas. Now, having said that, I'm not talking about necessarily casting right up into the beach where everyone is playing. The key here is bass will use beaches as feeding locations because the individuals that are there stirring up the sand are stirring up silt, which then draws minnows to the area, which then draws bigger fish to the area like bass. So a beach generally has a bunch of bass that are using that area as a primary forage ground. So you don't necessarily have to fish up into the beach because those bass are generally using the edges. So in a lot of locations, you've got a very defined sand beach, and then where that beach ends, you may have a weed flat that starts. Maybe you've got some bigger rock that starts. The point there is you probably have a transition zone. That's going to be where most of the fish are. And a lot of times that transition zone is outside of the swimming buoys or outside of the no fishing area. The point here, beaches can be excellent places to fish because that commotion riles up the water, which draws smaller bait fish to the area, and therefore the bass use it to feed, and they've got good ambush locations because of the transition zone. Along those same lines, another area that a lot of people will completely avoid are heavily trafficked boating channels. So, as an example, several years ago, I was fishing on the Tennessee River. I was fishing at Pickwick Lake, where there is a defined channel coming out from a boat ramp. It was a weekend day, and there were boats consistently coming in and out of a marked channel with red and green buoys. The channel was probably 30 feet wide. It took you through a flat. Now, where that flat met the actual river channel, there was a nice ledge, and I had located fish there in practice, but I could not get them to bite in the tournament. Well, I had a boat come out of that boat launch, idle past me, and I threw my bait into the prop wash of that boat and instantly caught a fish. Now, not only did that happen once, it happened the next 5 boats in a row. And it was specifically because every time that boat went through that channel across that little shallow flat, it stirred the water up and it created a feeding frenzy because the bass were using that prop wash to feed. This is something that we see in a lot of different places. If you happen to live up in the North Country, you know that muskie love to be in the prop wash because they take advantage of fish being stirred up and out of control by that prop wash. So if you're in a highly trafficked area where there's lots of boat traffic, if you fish the Fox Channel Lakes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've got just constant flows of boats going through these channel areas. When those boats go through, it creates a good feeding opportunity, and those fish are very much accustomed to it in those areas. The Lake Minnetonka is another place where you can get on this pattern because the fish see so many boats. They're not concerned about the boats. They're concerned about how to use the boat to their advantage. So that's a second place you might actually want to try to seek out, are areas that are highly trafficked by boats. If you fish down in Florida and you've got connecting lakes where you've got channels that connect it, like on the Toho chain, another great place where the fish will bite on the shell beds at the mouths of those shell bars in the canals when boats go by. It doesn't scare them, it actually turns the fish on. A third place to look. This is something that you very, very rarely hear people ever talk about, and that's to fish in the shadow of your own boat. And what I mean by that is if you're going down a flat, say you're fishing in 15 feet of water, it is not uncommon at all to have fish sit in the shadow of your boat. They're out on a flat, it's a sunny day, they're looking for areas to get out of the sun. When they find the shadow of your boat, they will actually drift with it. This is something that we see very common on a lot of the Great Lakes. Places with smallmouth absolutely love to do this. Spotted bass will do it too. Largemouth still will do it. You just kind of need the right circumstances and the right flats. But a lot of fish will literally drift in the shadow of your boat or stay in the shadow of the boat because they're using it to get out of the sun and they're using it as an ambush location. So don't be afraid to toss the bait in the shadow of your boat every once in a while. If you're using electronics, you probably see very frequently fish right under the trolling motor. And a lot of times that's because they're in the shadow of your boat. So don't overlook your own shadow as a potential fishing location. I have had lots of fish caught throughout the years where I just happen to toss my bait into the shadow of my boat and catch a fish because of it. So don't completely overlook that. So that's the third thing. The fourth are your boat buoys. And what I mean by that is a lot of houses will have buoys that are boat tie-ups. So maybe they've got sailboats, maybe they've got a raft. The cord or the cable or the rope that goes from that buoy or that raft down to a big cinder block provides a very good fishing location. I don't know exactly why the fish use, say, a single piece of rope or cable, but they really like to sit on that. They'll use it as a home base. So a lot of times you may be going down a shoreline, you see a single floating buoy by itself. Don't be afraid to make a cast over there because the cable itself provides a very good fish holding location, as well as the big cinder block or rock pile that they've got that's anchoring that buoy. So, keep in mind, if they're putting a sailboat onto it, that cement cinder block that they're sinking or they're holding that boat in place with is a lot bigger than you think, which creates the opportunity of it being like a single boulder, which is a great fish holding location. So anytime I'm going down a shoreline, if there is any sort of vertical rope or tie up that is holding something in the water, I always make a single cast to it. The same honestly holds true with docks that have cables. Floating docks that have cables, a lot of times the fish will just hold on those cables. Most people don't bother with the cables. They always just fish the docks, but the cable acts in a very similar manner. The last thing is something you do hear a lot of people talk about, and it kind of goes along with this, some of these other objects or locations I've talked about, and that's a boat ramp. Boat ramps are great locations to fish, even when they're extremely busy. And it goes along with the same thing as your boating channels or your beaches. When there's a lot of activity that stirs up the water, it creates a lot of opportunity for the fish to ambush bait, and it brings a lot of bait into those areas to feed on all of the turbulence and the things that are being stirred up. So a boat ramp is always a great place to fish. And not only do you have bait fish that are going to be pulled there, you generally have a hole in terms of where the prop wash hole is. So you're going to have some form of a little dip that the fish can hold in. Plus, you generally have some cement blocks or edges, whether that's the ramp that's going down or you've got where the ramp ends. You've got very defined edges, and the fish generally like to hold on those targets as well. So there's a lot of good things going on with boat ramps, and a lot of times people launch their boat, they drive away from it, but I can tell you I have cashed a lot of checks throughout the years off of boat ramps where I'm literally running around the lake fishing public boat ramps, private boat ramps, doesn't really matter. They generally all hold fish. So those are 5 locations. Do not overlook the next time you're out on the water. The nice thing with them too is they generally are pretty small locations. You can visually see them, pull up, make a handful of casts, and then get out of there. So you're not going to spend a whole lot of time breaking it down. They're the type of places you pull up, you catch one, maybe 2, maybe 3, but then you can move on to the next one. Hopefully this helps you. If it does, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.